There is something quietly fascinating about people who grew up in the 1970s, and psychology can actually explain why. If you grew up in this era, your brain developed during a rare window in human history, a time when freedom and responsibility existed together in a way that no longer exists today. And here is the strange part. People who grew up in the 70s often look at modern life and just shake their heads. Not out of bitterness, not out of arrogance, but out of knowing, because they lived through something that cannot be recreated. They remember a childhood that felt endless. A time when the world felt larger, slower, and more forgiving. Many of them still say things like, "We had no idea how good we had it." Or "I wish I could go back and stay there." Or the classic phrase that says everything in one sentence. "We grew up on hose water. We were feral. And it was glorious, but what exactly made the 70s so different? And more importantly, what did that childhood do to your brain that still shows up in the way you think, act, and handle life today?" The first major trait psychologists point to is something called self-directed problem solving. And it usually started with one sentence every 70s kid remembers clearly. "Go find something to do," or "I will find something for you to do." You knew exactly what that meant. Saying you were bored was a dangerous move. Boredom did not get sympathy, it got chores. So you learned quickly. If you wanted freedom, you had to create it yourself. There were no pre-planned activities waiting for you, no packed schedules, no adults hovering over your day. You were handed time and space and told to figure it out. Studies on unstructured childhood show that children who had to invent their own entertainment developed stronger executive function, creativity, and internal motivation. You learned how to turn nothing into something. A stick became a sword. An empty field became an entire world. A bike ride became an expedition. This is why so many people from that era became lifelong readers, explorers, builders, and thinkers. You did not wait for stimulation. You generated it. Your brain learned something many modern brains never do: how to create purpose out of emptiness. That single skill alone explains why you are still resourceful, adaptable, and independent today. But creativity alone does not explain why people who grew up in the 70s remain unusually calm under pressure. That comes from the next trait: adaptive risk calibration. You climbed trees that were definitely too high. You rode bikes without helmets. You played near roads. You experimented with fireworks. You got hurt. You learned limits the hard way. And every scraped knee and broken bone taught your nervous system something crucial: what real danger feels like, and what manageable risk looks like. Developmental psychology shows that children who experienced physical risk during play developed better threat assessment and lower baseline anxiety as adults. Your brain learned danger through experience, not warnings. You were not told what was risky. You discovered it. And because of that, your fear system became calibrated instead of overactive. This is why you can walk into a crisis and start solving problems while others freeze or panic. Your nervous system has been here before. Chaos does not overwhelm you. It activates you. Now here's the trait that younger generations struggle to understand: comfortable solitude capacity. You spend hours alone without feeling lonely. You listened to entire albums. You stared at the ceiling. You lay in the grass and thought about nothing and everything at the same time. There was no screen demanding your attention every few seconds. Research on pre-digital childhood shows that people who grew up without constant connectivity experience less anxiety when alone with their thoughts. Many modern adults cannot sit quietly for 15 minutes without distress. Some studies even show people choosing mild discomfort over silence. That would have sounded absurd to you. You learned early that boredom was not an emergency. It was a doorway. And because of that, your brain never became addicted to constant stimulation. This is why silence feels comfortable to you. Why waiting does not bother you. Why you do not feel the need to fill every empty moment. That leads directly into the next trait. Analog patience. You waited for things. You waited for your favorite show once a week. You waited for photos to be developed. You waited for letters. You waited to use the phone. You waited for people to be home. Delayed gratification was not a lesson. It was life. Psychology shows that people who grew up waiting developed stronger impulse control, better emotional regulation, healthier relationships, and greater long-term success. Your entire childhood trained patience in a way modern life actively works against. Instant gratification does not satisfy you the way it does for younger generations because your reward system was built differently. And then there is the trait that ties everything together: unsupervised autonomy wiring. By the age of 8, you left the house in the morning and your only rule was to be home when the streetlights came on. Nobody tracked you. Nobody hovered. You navigated the world on your own. You assessed situations. You made judgment calls. You faced consequences and you learned from them. Research on childhood independence shows that freedom of movement without constant supervision builds stronger internal motivation and decision-making ability. Your parents were not your friends. They were authorities, and they trusted you to be capable. This is why you do not need constant guidance. Why you think critically, why you adapt quickly, why you trust your own judgment. So when you look at modern life and feel out of place, remember this: you are not outdated. You are carrying abilities that are quietly disappearing. The independence that looks like coldness is competence. The comfort with silence that looks antisocial is depth. The patience that looks like apathy is discipline. You survived a childhood that would get parents arrested today. And it did not damage you. It built you. For a brief moment in history, childhood was both free and formative. You lived in that moment, and nothing like it has existed since. If you grew up in the 70s, you did not just grow older. You grew differently,